We are flying over Washington, District of Columbia, capital of the United States. We shall view this beautiful city, the pride of every American, from the clouds and from the ground, thus observing it to the best advantage. We soar over the Capitol, the Senate and House of Representatives office buildings, and the Congressional Library. They house the legislative and judicial branches of the government, plan and enact the laws of the land. Should the plane encounter sudden air pockets, don't be alarmed. Congress may be in session. Here's a close-up of the House office building, where congressmen do their heavy thinking. In this structure, each representative has an office in which to transact the government's official business. The Senate office building is just across the Capitol grounds. Both buildings are constructed of beautiful white marble and are connected with the Capitol by underground railways. We abandon flight to stroll in Pennsylvania Avenue. Thomas Jefferson, who first knew it as a marshy lane, lined it with poplars. And now the proud street carries the nation's great to the doors of the Capitol. This magnificent structure stands on Capitol Hill, from which radiate 21 broad avenues. The cornerstone was laid by Washington himself, but the building was not fully completed until the end of the Civil War. Adjoining the Capitol grounds is the impressive Congressional Library, where 50 miles of shelves hold more than 1 million books and pamphlets. Its outer walls present a remarkable display of the sculptor's art. These magnificent figures, wrought by man's hand, favorably compare to the masterpieces of the world. They represent true American art in its highest form, and the government has spared no pains in making this building truly beautiful. Only from the air can its beauty be fully appreciated. Next to the Capitol and the White House, this is the most popular public building in Washington. Who says all is not gold that glitters? This great dome is coated with 23-karat gold. Behind the Capitol stands the Peace Monument, one of the newer and more impressive of the city's works of art. It was erected to commemorate the peace which marked the close of the World War. Flying along Pennsylvania Avenue, we see the classic Treasury building, where Uncle Sam keeps his bulging pocketbook. The vaults hold millions upon millions of the nation's wealth. America's forefathers reached back into the ages for the design of the Treasury, one of the loveliest buildings in Washington. The Treasury was erected on the spot where the forceful Andrew Jackson, the 7th president, firmly stuck his cane upon the ground to fix its site. Put it there, he ordered, and they did. It's but a bird's hop to the White House and across the famed lawn to the State and War Building, the country's nerve center in time of war. The Department of State and the War Department occupy its 500 rooms, and as for corridors, adding them together, they are 2 miles long. The treasures kept here include the original copies of the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence, also the armchair in which Jefferson wrote the Declaration. Here are the State and War Building in the foreground, the Treasury in the background, and between them the White House. The home of the President was painted white in 1814, after the British had partially burned it, but it was the strenuous Roosevelt who gave the lovely structure its delightfully descriptive name officially. It was the earliest building completed in Washington. John Adams and his wife Abigail were its first occupants. Nearby lies DuPont Circle, center of a district of magnificent homes and the embassies of foreign nations. It is an historic part of the city, mellow with the memory of great names. This striking building of Grecian design is the Government Patent Office. Records of millions of inventions are kept here. Here's the world's largest printing plant, the Government Printing Office. What rivers of ink flow here, mostly into the Congressional Record, and how the congressmen love it. In this drab, decaying building was committed a crime which shocked the world. Here in Ford's Theater, Lincoln was shot down on that evil April night of 1865. Again in the air, we fly over the Mall, now being actively developed into the sweep of beauty dreamed by its planners over a century and a quarter ago. On our way rears that shaft of glory to the glamorous memory of the first president. In its simple, austere beauty, the Washington Monument, 555 feet in height, dominates the landscape. Loopholes near the top afford panoramas over the city, hills, and rivers. From the northern end of the mall, we see the monument down a vista of unforgettable beauty. Across the lagoon, the shaft faces a deathless tribute to another great American. The exquisite Lincoln Memorial is the greatest monument ever erected to the memory of one man, the great emancipator. Fittingly, each of the 36 states in the Union when he died is represented by a pillar. Thus did the reconstructed land pay heartfelt homage. Within is the superb statue of Lincoln, flanked by bronze tablets bearing his exalted utterances. The spirit of Lincoln seems to brood beside the river which so often held his anguished thoughts in the harrowing years from 61 to 65. Indeed, all is quiet along the Potomac. The bridge to Virginia is a memorial to Francis Scott Key, author of the Star-Spangled Banner, for he lived nearby. It leads to Arlington, where sleep the nation's warrior dead. Arlington originally was the estate of the gallant Robert E. Lee, whose mansion now is a national shrine. It was from here that he departed to lead his cause. The amphitheater, reverent in its beauty, stands amid tall Virginia cedars. Beside it is the country's memorial to its World War heroes, the tomb of the unknown soldier, seen at the top. 16 miles from the city he founded, on the opposite bank of the Potomac, stands Mount Vernon, where the father of his country lived and died, and where his body lies entombed. The nation now holds his home in trust for the ages. The modest George Washington wanted to call the capital Federal City, but the young nation lovingly ignored him and gave it his great name. Whenever and wherever Americans pronounce the name, they pay homage to the undying glory of Washington. And, like the man, the city remains first in peace, first in war, first in the hearts of his countrymen.